was clapping. It happened when I was speaking to walls, to mirrors, to my own fear. And that is why it worked. There was a time when English felt like a locked door. I could see opportunity on the other side, but my tongue refused to cooperate. I had thoughts, deep, meaningful, intelligent thoughts, but they stayed trapped inside me because the language did not come out the way it lived in my mind. People assumed silence meant ignorance. They assumed broken sentences meant a broken mind. And slowly, unknowingly, I started assuming the same about myself. I used to think fluency belonged to confident people, to educated families, to those who went to elite schools, to those who were born lucky. I told myself stories like, I am too late. I am not made for this. My accent will always betray me. But one day, I realized something painful yet liberating. English was not rejecting me. I was rejecting myself before even trying. So I began at home. Not in classrooms, not with expensive courses, not with perfect plans. Just at home with imperfect courage. Every day, I made a promise not to speak perfectly, but to speak honestly. Some days, it was only 5 minutes. Some days it was 30. Some days it was messy, embarrassing, and exhausting. But it was daily, and daily effort has a strange power. It doesn't shout, it whispers. But those whispers change lives. I started talking to myself while cooking. I described what I was doing in English, even when the sentences were wrong. I am cutting vegetables. I am boiling water. I am tired, but I am learning. The grammar didn't matter at first. What mattered was movement. My tongue moving, my mind adjusting, my fear loosening its grip. I spoke in front of the mirror, not to admire myself, but to face myself. I watched my hesitation. I noticed how my voice dropped when I felt unsure. I practiced smiling while speaking, because confidence sometimes begins with a muscle movement before it reaches the heart. At first, I couldn't look into my own eyes for long. Later, those same eyes started believing me. I listened more than I spoke. English became a sound before it became a sentence. I listened to interviews, speeches, simple conversations. Not to understand every word, but to feel the rhythm. Language is music before it is grammar. Once I understood that, learning became softer, kinder, and less violent to my self-esteem. Every night, I repeated sentences aloud. Not silently, aloud, because language lives in the mouth, not just in the mind. I recorded my voice and played it back, even when I hated how I sounded. Especially when I hated how I sounded, because growth often sounds ugly before it sounds confident. Some days I cried. Some days I wanted to quit. Some days I asked myself why I was putting myself through this discomfort. And every time, the answer returned quietly, because I deserved to be heard. Because my ideas deserve a voice. Because confidence is not gifted. It is practiced. I did not wait to feel confident before speaking. I spoke until confidence arrived. That is a truth many people miss. Confidence does not come before action. It comes because of action. At home, nobody laughed at my mistakes. Nobody corrected me harshly. Nobody judged my pauses. That safety allowed me to fail freely. And failure, when repeated daily, turns into familiarity. Familiarity turns into ease. Ease turns into fluency. Slowly, my brain stopped translating every sentence from my mother tongue. It began thinking directly in English. Not because I was special, but because I was consistent. The brain is loyal to repetition. It builds highways where you walk every day. There were days when progress felt invisible. I spoke for weeks and felt stuck. But one day, unexpectedly, I answered a question without panic. One day I expressed a thought without rehearsing it in my head. One day, someone said, "You speak well," and I didn't argue with them inside my mind. That day, I knew something had changed. Daily home practice taught me more than English. It taught me patience. It taught me humility. It taught me that transformation does not need an audience. It only needs commitment. I stopped comparing my journey with others. Comparison is the enemy of fluency. Some people start earlier. Some people have advantages. But language does not ask where you come from. It asks how often you show up. I allowed myself to sound not smart for a while. That decision saved me years. Because pretending to be perfect keeps you silent, and silence never improves language. Speaking imperfectly is not a weakness. It is the doorway. I learned to celebrate small wins. One full sentence without fear. One conversation without panic. One moment where I didn't apologize for my English before speaking. These moments built me brick by brick. At home, I made English a companion, not a subject. It was there in my thoughts, my prayers, my reflections. I spoke about my pain in English. I spoke about my dreams in English. When language connects to emotion, it stays longer. Today, when people hear me speak, they see confidence. They don't see the lonely practice. They don't see the nights of self-doubt. They don't hear the broken sentences that built the smooth ones. But I remember. And I honor that version of myself who practiced when nobody believed. If you are practicing at home and feel foolish, remember this. Every fluent speaker once sounded exactly like you. The only difference is they continued. Do not wait for the perfect environment. Home is enough. Do not wait for perfect grammar. Progress comes first. Do not wait for confidence. Speak your way into it. Your accent is not a mistake. Your pauses are not failures. Your effort is not invisible. Every day you practice, your brain listens. Your tongue learns. Your fear retreats. One day, you will speak and realize you are no longer translating, no longer trembling, no longer hiding. One day, English will feel like a tool, not a threat. And when that day comes, remember, it did not happen suddenly. It happened daily, quietly, patiently, at home. And that is how my English changed. And even after that moment arrives, when English no longer feels heavy on your tongue, the journey does not truly end. Because language is not a destination. It is a relationship. And like every relationship, it grows when you keep showing up with honesty. There were days when I spoke well, and days when my words still stumbled. Earlier, those bad days used to break my confidence. Later, I learned not to panic. Progress is never a straight line. Some days you feel fluent, some days you feel lost again. That does not mean you are going backward. It means your brain is stretching into a deeper level of learning. At home, I stopped practicing only correct sentences. I began practicing real ones, emotional ones, awkward ones. The kind of sentences you need when life suddenly asks you to explain yourself, defend your dignity, or express your pain. I practiced saying no. I practiced asking for help. I practiced expressing disagreement politely. Because fluency is not about sounding smart. It is about being understood when it matters. I talked to myself about my fears in English. At first, the vocabulary was limited, but the intention was strong. When language carries intention, it grows faster. I learned that when you attach English to your real life, not just books, it stops feeling foreign. I made peace with silence too. I learned that pauses are not shameful. They are thinking spaces. Earlier, I rushed my sentences out of fear. Now, I allowed myself to breathe. Confidence is not speed. Confidence is calm. Some people ask me, how long did it take? And I never had a clean answer, because change did not happen on a date. It happened in layers. One layer of fear removed here. One layer of hesitation softened there. One layer of courage added quietly, daily. At home, I practiced even when I was tired. Especially when I was tired. Because discipline on easy days builds nothing. Discipline on difficult days builds identity. And language listens to discipline. I stopped mocking myself for mistakes. I started correcting myself gently. The way you speak to yourself while learning becomes the voice in your head while speaking publicly. Be careful with that voice. Make it kind. How to be patient. Make it yours. There came a point when English stopped feeling like an exam and started feeling like expression. I no longer memorized sentences to impress. I created sentences to connect. And connection is where true confidence lives. I realized something very important during this journey. People are far kinder than our fear tells us. Most people are not judging your grammar. They are listening to your courage. They are watching your effort. And those who mock were never your audience to begin with. Daily home practice gave me ownership. I was no longer waiting for permission to speak. I was no longer asking for validation before trying. That ownership changed not just my English, but my posture, my presence, my belief. Now when I speak with my whole self. Not perfect, but present. Not flawless, but fearless. And that presence came from hours of unseen practice. If you are sitting at home right now, practicing alone, doubting yourself, feeling slow, stay there a little longer. That quiet room is shaping a voice that will one day speak boldly in louder places. Your future confidence is being built in your current discomfort. Do not escape it. Do not rush it. Respect it. Speak daily. Fail daily. Improve daily. And one day, without announcing it, English will stop being your struggle and start being your strength. And when that happens, remember, you did not change because someone taught you perfectly. You changed because you practiced faithfully. At home, every day, and even now, I remind myself of one truth again and again: fluency is not a finish line you cross and forget about. It is a garden you keep watering. The day you stop practicing is the day fear slowly starts returning. So I never stopped talking to myself. I never stopped listening. I never stopped learning. Because growth loves humility. At home, I learned to forgive myself quickly. Earlier, one mistake could silence me for hours. Now, one mistake becomes a lesson and nothing more. I realize that confidence is not the absence of mistakes. It is the refusal to let mistakes define you. When you stop punishing yourself, your tongue relaxes. When your tongue relaxes, your words flow. I also learned to respect my pace. Some people run, some people walk, some people crawl, but all of them move forward. The problem is not slow learning. The problem is quitting. And I decided that no matter how slow I sounded, I would not stop sounding. There were moments when English surprised me. A sentence came out naturally. A word appeared at the right time. A conversation ended without regret. These moments felt small, but inside, they felt like victory. They reminded me that my daily effort was being stored somewhere deep, waiting for the right moment to rise. I stopped fearing judgment because I understood something important. People forget your mistakes, but they remember your confidence. And confidence is not loud, it is calm. It is grounded. It is the quiet belief that says, I may not be perfect, but I am capable. At home, I practiced speaking slowly. I gave myself permission to think. Earlier, I believed fluency meant speed. Now I know fluency means clarity. It means choosing the right word instead of rushing the wrong one. It means trusting silence instead of filling it with panic. I also learned to listen to my inner voice. If that voice says, "You are embarrassing yourself," gently answer back, "I am learning." If it says, "You will never be fluent," remind it, "I am better than yesterday." The conversation you have with yourself determines the confidence you carry into the world. Daily practice changed the way I introduce myself, not just in English, but in life. I no longer shrink before speaking. I no longer apologize for taking space.